Easy, Senator. Keep turning for me.
You have no idea what you're doing. This is unlawful.
Keep it calm, everyone. Watch your step. Back to the car.
I'm a sitting United States Senator. You're making a huge mistake.
Copy, units. Transport ready when you are.
Slide in, sir. Watch your
It's
head.
going to cost your department.
Seatbelts on. Doors coming shut.
Officer Nolan Hayes had been with the Denver Police Department for just 7 months. But in his mind, he was already a veteran. He carried himself with the kind of rigid confidence that comes from inexperience, trying to pass as authority. He wanted to be the kind of cop who didn't wait for crime to happen. He wanted to stop it before it even started. It was this misguided ambition, this dangerous fusion of ego and insecurity, that led him to make a decision on a cold Tuesday night that would not only end his career but would also cost the taxpayers of Denver a staggering $25 million. The target of his proactive policing was a man standing on a downtown sidewalk, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, speaking with another man next to a black sedan. Nothing about the scene suggested a crime. There was no shouting, no physical threat, no sign of distress. But Officer Hayes saw it all through a lens of suspicion. In his mind, a black man in a suit this expensive, in this part of town, could only mean one thing. Something was wrong. That man was United States Senator Marcus Thompson, and the rookie cop, in a desperate attempt to prove himself, was about to unlawfully arrest one of the most powerful men in the country. Before we continue, where are you watching from? If this is your first time here, please hit that subscribe button. Stories like these need to be shared, and your support helps us bring more truth to light. Senator Marcus Thompson was a man forged in the crucible of public service. At 58 years old, he had dedicated his life to the law, first as a prosecutor fighting for victims, then as the state's attorney general, and for the last 6 years as a sitting United States Senator. He was known for his calm, measured demeanor, his sharp legal mind, and his unwavering commitment to justice. He had championed bipartisan criminal justice reform, advocating for better training, de-escalation policies, and the mandatory use of body cameras, the very technology that would soon vindicate him. That evening, Senator Thompson had been the keynote speaker at a charity gala for the Children's Hospital of Colorado. He had delivered a powerful speech about community and responsibility, earning a standing ovation from the city's most influential figures. After the event, he stepped outside into the crisp night air, waiting for his driver, David, to bring the car around from the valet. When David pulled up, there was a brief, quiet discussion on the sidewalk. The senator, a creature of habit, was giving precise directions for the route home, preferring a specific set of streets to avoid the late-night traffic. It was a mundane 2-minute conversation between an employer and his trusted driver of over a decade. It was the most normal moment imaginable. But to Officer Nolan Hayes, who was patrolling the area after the high-profile event, it was a scene ripe with suspicion. Officer Hayes had graduated from the academy with decent marks, but his file contained subtle red flags that had been overlooked. His field training officer had noted his tendency to misinterpret non-threatening social cues as potential hostility. Another evaluation mentioned that Hayes struggles with situational awareness in high stress, low information environments. He was eager, almost too eager, to make a name for himself. He saw the older veteran officers at his precinct and craved their respect. A respect he felt could only be earned through a good bust. He didn't want to be the rookie writing traffic tickets. He wanted to be the hero who foiled a crime in progress. So when he saw Senator Thompson, a distinguished black man in a bespoke suit, engaged in a conversation with his driver, Hayes's mind began to construct a narrative of crime. He didn't see a politician in his aid. He saw a potential shakedown, a wealthy man being intimidated, or perhaps a con artist impersonating a VIP. The implicit bias he never confronted told him that this man didn't fit the expected profile of a US senator. That single, flawed assumption was the spark that would ignite a multi-million-dollar firestorm. He pulled his cruiser to the curb, flipped on his body camera and stepped out, convinced he was about to do real police work. Hayes approached the two men with an aggressive posture, his hand resting on his duty belt. "Evening, gentlemen. Is there a problem here?" he asked, his tone flat and accusatory. Senator Thompson turned, his expression one of polite surprise. "No problem at all, officer. I was just giving my driver directions home." Hayes ignored the driver and focused entirely on the senator. "I need to see some ID, sir." The senator's eyebrows furrowed slightly, but his voice remained even. "May I ask why, officer? We haven't done anything wrong. I'll be the judge of that. I saw a heated argument, and I need to make sure everyone is safe. License and ID, please." There was no heated argument. The body camera footage would later show the conversation was quiet and utterly unremarkable. But Hayes had already committed to his version of reality. "Officer, with all due respect," there was no argument, the senator stated calmly. "But I am happy to identify myself. My name is Marcus Thompson." He reached slowly into his jacket pocket. "I am a United States Senator." Hayes let out a short, incredulous laugh. "A senator? Right, and I'm the president. Let me see the ID." This was the moment where a seasoned officer would have paused, assessed the man's confident demeanor, his professional attire, and the context of the nearby gala, and proceeded with caution. But Nolan Hayes was not a seasoned officer. He was a rookie driven by insecurity, and the senator's calm assertion of his identity felt like a challenge to his newfound authority. He believed he was being played. The senator, maintaining his composure, produced his wallet and presented his official U.S. Senate identification card. The gold-embossed seal of the United States Senate was unmistakable, his photograph clear under the streetlight. "Here you are, officer." Hayes took the ID but barely glanced at it. "These can be faked. I'm going to need you to place your hands behind your back." The senator's eyes widened in disbelief. "You're detaining me? On what grounds?" "I have identified myself and I have committed no crime." "You're being detained for interfering with an investigation," Hayes snapped, his voice rising. He was losing control and he knew it. He had expected deference, perhaps fear. But the senator's calm, logical refusal to be intimidated was making him feel foolish. This is where the footage from the video begins to unfold. The senator's voice, though strained with disbelief, remains firm. "You have no idea what you're doing. This is unlawful," he states, just as Hayes grabs his wrist to cuff him. The senator doesn't fight, but he doesn't shrink either. He stands his ground, a man who knows the law because he has spent his life writing and upholding it. As Hayes forces his arms back, the senator speaks with the weight of his office. "I'm a sitting United States Senator. You're making a huge mistake. Should an officer's personal suspicion, without any evidence of a crime, be enough to justify a detention? Let us know your thoughts in the comments." As Hayes leads the handcuffed senator toward his patrol car, his fellow officers, drawn by the stop, begin to gather. None of them intervene. They see a rookie making an arrest, and following protocol, they form a perimeter to secure the scene. They have no idea that the man in cuffs is not a suspect, but a federal lawmaker. Hayes pushes the senator towards the open door of the patrol car. "Slide in, sir. Watch your head." The quiet dignity with which Senator Thompson complies, even in this moment of profound violation, is striking. As the door closes, he makes a final, prophetic statement. "This is going to cost your department." He had no idea how right he was. It wasn't until Hayes was back at the precinct, trying to write his arrest report, that the first cracks in his fantasy began to appear. He ran the senator's name through the system. The results came back instantly, flagged with high-priority alerts. Marcus Thompson, United States Senator, former State Attorney General. A photograph, identical to the one on the ID he had dismissed as a fake, stared back at him from the screen. A cold dread washed over him. He had not arrested a criminal. He had arrested the highest-ranking elected official in the state. At that moment, the precinct captain, a 25-year veteran named Frank Costello, burst into the room, his face pale with fury. "Hayes!" "My office, now." The captain's phone had been ringing off the hook for the past 20 minutes. The first call was from the senator's chief of staff. The second was from the mayor's office. The third, and most terrifying, was from the head of the senator's Secret Service detail, who wanted to know why a US senator had been arrested without cause and without notification. Captain Costello had already pulled up Hayes's body camera footage. He watched the entire interaction in horrified silence. He saw the baseless stop, the rookie's condescending tone, the senator's calm attempts to de-escalate, and the moment Hayes chose to ignore a legitimate federal ID and make a wrongful arrest. It was an indefensible catastrophe. "What were you thinking?" Costello demanded, his voice a low growl. Hayes stammered, "Captain, I thought he was suspicious. The suit, the car, it didn't seem right. It didn't seem right." Costello exploded. A black man in a nice suit, standing outside a charity gala he just headlined, is suspicious to you? You didn't arrest a suspect, Hayes. You arrested a man who signs the federal budgets that fund this department. You are suspended, effective immediately. Give me your badge and your weapon. By morning, the story was a national firestorm. The body camera footage had been leaked to the press, and it was playing on every news network. The headlines were brutal. Rookie cop unlawfully arrests U.S. senator. Senator Thompson arrested in case of mistaken identity. Denver PD faces crisis after senator's wrongful arrest. The public outrage was swift and overwhelming. The image of a distinguished black senator being handcuffed on a sidewalk by a young, white officer became a symbol of the very systemic issues Senator Thompson had spent his career fighting to reform. Senator Thompson did not make a spectacle. He issued a calm, dignified statement through his office. "Last night, I was the victim of an unlawful detention. While the experience was deeply unsettling, it has reinforced my commitment to reforming our justice system to ensure that what happened to me does not happen to any other citizen, regardless of their station in life." He was every bit the statesman, but behind the scenes, he was preparing for a legal battle. He hired one of the most prominent civil rights law firms in the country. The lawsuit was filed 2 weeks later. It named Officer Nolan Hayes and the city of Denver as defendants. The claims were devastating. Unlawful arrest, violation of Fourth Amendment rights, racial profiling, and failure by the department to properly train and supervise its officers. The lawsuit sought $25 million in damages, not for personal enrichment, but as a punitive measure so severe that it would force the city to enact meaningful, systemic change. The city's attorneys reviewed the case and knew they stood no chance. The evidence was absolute. The body camera footage was a prosecutor's dream and a defense attorney's nightmare. It showed no crime, no reasonable suspicion, and a clear abuse of authority. The victim wasn't just any citizen. He was a U.S. senator with unimpeachable credibility and infinite resources. Taking the case to trial would be a public relations disaster that would almost certainly result in an even larger jury award. Settlement negotiations began immediately. The city's initial offers were rejected. The senator's legal team was adamant. This wasn't just about money. It was about accountability. Finally, facing overwhelming legal and political pressure, the city agreed to settle for the full $25 million. It was one of the largest settlements for a wrongful arrest in the city's history. The consequences for Officer Nolan Hayes were swift and absolute. He was terminated from the Denver Police Department just 6 weeks after the incident. The termination letter was blunt, citing gross incompetence, violation of departmental policy, and conduct that has brought the department into disrepute. His name was entered into the National Decertification Index, a database that ensures he can never work in law enforcement in any state ever again. His career, which had lasted only 7 months, was over. The Department of Justice launched a full-scale pattern and practice investigation into the Denver Police Department, scrutinizing their training protocols, hiring practices, and disciplinary records. The investigation uncovered the red flags in Hayes' file that had been ignored. It revealed systemic failures in the department's implicit bias and de-escalation training. The DOJ's final report mandated a complete overhaul of the department's policies, overseen by a federal monitor. Senator Thompson donated the entirety of the $25 million settlement. A portion went to the children's hospital he had been supporting on the night of his arrest. The rest was used to establish the Thompson Foundation for Police Accountability, a non-profit organization dedicated to funding better training, providing legal support for victims of police misconduct, and advocating for national police reform legislation. In the end, Officer Nolan Hayes' desire to be a hero made him a villain. He didn't stop a crime. He became the criminal. He saw a black man in a position of power, and his bias wouldn't allow him to believe what was right in front of his eyes. He mistook a statesman for a suspect, dignity for defiance, and authority for aggression. That mistake, captured on his own body camera, cost him his career, cost the city millions, and exposed a truth that many already knew. That in America, even a United States senator can be treated like a suspect simply because of the color of his skin. The system that produced Nolan Hayes failed long before he put on a uniform. It failed when it ignored the warnings in his training file. It failed when it prioritized assertive action over constitutional knowledge. And it failed when it sent a rookie full of unchecked bias and ambition out onto the streets. The $25 million wasn't just a settlement. It was the price of that failure. And maybe, just maybe, a price that high will be enough to prevent the next rookie from making the same mistake.